This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to call the March 20th, 2025 regular meeting of North Haven Board of Education to order at 6:30 p.m. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Claudia Abercrombie. She was a secretary for multiple decades, and she had retired from the North Haven Middle School. So I think we should all just give a moment to keep her in our thoughts. Thank you very much. We have a presentation tonight from Paul DeMeo and Steve Shaughnessy on behalf of DATCO. Phyllis?
All right, so my name is Steve Shaughnessy. I'm the VP of the School Bus Division for DATCO. So first of all, I just want to say thank you. We are honored to be here. We'll introduce Paul.
Yeah, Paul DeMeo. I'm Assistant Vice President for the School Bus Division, and will be the primary liaison for the school system.
Okay.
So we can also introduce our manager, who we hired.
Hi, Christina McKennell. I'll be the new location manager for you guys.
Excellent.
So I wasn't going to start there, but I will. So normally we wouldn't hire a local manager kind of so early before the contract starting. But we have a great one here, so we wanted to get her on board, get her fully up to speed so that we can really, hit the ground running and, make sure that we're going to provide an outstanding service, to the town. We are also going to be hiring an operations supervisor. That position has been posted, and we'll be conducting interviews over the next 4 to 6 weeks to get somebody hired on and in. So just an update on the contract. I know there's been some back and forth, and I believe we are very, very close to having that completed. I think it's more of just a formality at this point. So really good news there. Our facility, we have identified a facility that we're very confident is going to be ready to go for the start of this. Everything has been very positive. We continue to follow up. If by chance something were to happen, we do have some contingency plans and some other properties, close by that we have, ownership of or, already leased, but we don't anticipate having any issues. As far as our driver staffing, so we've had 2 events now. One actually happening today with our local drivers. We had one back on February 27th at North Haven High School, and it was a great event. Really great turnout. We had 8 members of DATCO's between ownership, executive staff, and management that were there to answer questions, talk about DATCO, about our history, about our company. And Patrick and Christian were both there, very supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, it was great. And then we did something today. We had you want to talk about that?
We just opened up Nikki and Frankie down the road. We took the back of the building, bought a bunch of pizzas, and invited anybody that chose to come over, and we just chatted. We found quite a nice participation from the local drivers. A lot of great questions. Sometimes when you have those, you get some wacky questions or people that are kind of tough. Everybody was wonderful. All seem to be very interested in continuing to drive and support the district. I think at this point now we're going to start bringing them in individually, offering them pay rates that make sense for them. And getting, and there'll be a deadline for them to be able to come on with us and maintain their current seniority. Our intent is that every one of them comes on with us and has an increase in their current rate of 3% or more. So that's being received pretty well.
And obviously, not to cut you off, but, you know, obviously there's a timing element to it, right? As far as, you know, the switch. So we obviously want to, you know, respect that and understand that, you know, they need to continue to provide the, you know, the service, you know, right now until we, you know, officially take over. So,
Yeah, we've made it clear that if they want an opportunity with DACO, that they need to complete the school year in good standing with the district, not to have any interruptions in the current service.
just to, you know, one last thing just to touch on the driver element. So we do also have a pool of DACO drivers. We call them travel drivers, and as we approach the school year, if for some reason we see that there's might be a shortfall in drivers, we have this group that we can deploy, and you know, they would be doing you know, dry runs, and they would be here until we were able to find a permanent replacement. Obviously, we are not anticipating that, but again, it's a contingency plan that, you know, a backup that we have to ensure that we provide excellent service.
We've gotten enough, in my opinion, communication out to the local drivers. They know where we stand, they know how to get in touch with us, and we've had a lot of participation. Starting next week, we will start advertising for outside drivers and start the process of either licensing or entertaining folks from other districts that are licensed. The thing is that we can't hire anybody until, I think, June, because they have to be within 30 days of their application to be able to go live on the hire date. So we'll do offer letters and we'll keep engaged. And that's a tricky part right now, is keeping everybody engaged so that they stay on and come on with us and service the district. So I feel real confident that between the local drivers that have expressed interest in coming on and staying in the district, and what we get for application volume throughout this area, we're going to be in really good shape going into the school year and the summer.
So moving on to talk about fleet. So we, at this point, either have everything already on the ground or it has been already on order. So we're very confident that we're not going to have any issues there. And, you know, obviously we've got a lot of other resources if we needed to from a contingency standpoint, but we don't anticipate, you know, and we don't anticipate any issues. I think the last thing, and then, you know, we could probably, you know, maybe open up to questions, or I don't know how the format's going to go, is just the routing piece of it. So we have our own internal routing team. We use a software called Traversa, and we're ready to, you know, we are ready to go, and it's just a matter of having that signed contract. As soon as we have that, then we're ready to start, you know, receiving inputs and getting the data into our routing software and starting to build the routes.
And that's not so much on the contract, that's due to HIPAA and other things. We wouldn't take any uploads from the district until after everything is solidified, which is coming to its end right now, we understand, so we appreciate that.
So that's, you know, really kind of the update that we had for you tonight. Obviously open to any questions.
Anybody on the board? G, you got anything?
The Traversa, is that going to be the app that the parents would have access to like see what the kids, is that part of our contract at the?
I'm sorry, yeah, so there is, Traversa does have a student tracker app. So yeah, it's a free download.
It's available to all
Yeah,
parents?
it's available, yes, absolutely.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
Michelle?
I mean, you answered most of the questions that I had coming in. I just want to say that I think it's great that you're engaging our current drivers. I love that you're offering them, you know, a raise and maintaining your seniority and all of those good pieces. So I'm really hopeful that many of them are going to come along. They know our students and they know our roads, and we've said from the start that we would love to continue with them. So thank you for that.
And that was certainly, you know, a message that we, you know, gave them when we met with them, and that we continue to, you know, tell them, you know, that, hey, you know, they're the ones on the front line getting the job done every day. So.
And So some of your routing and everything you said is dependent on, I guess, signing the contract, like finishing signing the contract. So is that coming soon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're, like I said, I think it's just kind of a formality, and, you know, we should have a signed contract, and, I mean.
And then what the process will be is we'll take your current PowerSchool data and build everything up. We're also gonna try to mirror the runs and see what makes sense and doesn't, because there's no reason changing something doesn't need to change. I think for the parents, for the drivers, for a lot of different reasons, if it's not broken, don't fix it. There are some areas in it that we think are maybe a little broken that we can tailor and fix, which that's what we'll be addressing with the current year data. So that when we take your grade up over the summer, we'll have the templates in place, and it should be just a nice roll right into it. We also intend on partnering with some of the local drivers that have historical knowledge and experience to make sure we don't make any mistakes that somebody could make by sending them down a dead-end road that we've never been able to go down before and like that. So we have a lot of different elements that we're going to put into it. But the first step is being able to take the PowerSchool data and start getting something to look at in our system, and that's coming soon.
And I know that we have until, end of August really for the main routing, but summer school starts July 1. So you feel confident that even with your given timeline, that will be good and ready to go for summer school transportation as well?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Christina,
Yeah.
you've been meeting with them, right? Do you
Yeah.
have any update on that?
Yep, I talked to him, we went over the format and everything. Very comfortable. We'll make it happen.
Great, good to hear. Thank you.
Coley?
No questions here.
Joe?
Not a question as much as a statement. Anybody who's watched our board meetings and discussions centered around the bus prior meeting and was watching today, looking at you guys and how you're presenting, from a board perspective, I'm very appreciative of you being proactive, how professional you are, the way you set everything up, and even just coming here to talk to us while we're still negotiating and presenting everything is very much appreciated. So thank you.
Of course, as you said, that's what we're here for. So appreciate that.
Yeah?
I want to double down on what Joe said. Thank you for the thoughtful approach. It is very clear that time and effort has been spent in this partnership, investing in this partnership. I appreciate that. For the Traversa app, how accurate is the software, and are you finding that there are upper and lower bounds of how accurate it can be, how close we are to timing?
Yeah, so I'm certainly not an expert. We have our routing and IT guys that are, but what I will say is I know it is run off of cell coverage, so there can be gaps, and there can be I would say it's pretty accurate. I mean, I believe it's within like a minute or so delay. I don't think it's not like there's a big 5 or 10 minute delay in it. Again, unless there's some major cell phone area where it's just a total dead zone.
We do have a few of those, but the feedback that we have gotten from parents is just communication is better. Communication is key. We would like to kind of know what our routes are in advance so that we're not scrambling at the last minute. We want to know where our kids are, and my kids will ride your buses. So can you talk a little bit about your approach to communication?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I mean, first of all, our plan is to have 10% spare factor as far as drivers, so we can handle call outs, and so that part of it isn't an issue. And I find when we take care of that, and it's for the most part the same driver on the same route every day, and we have that consistency, it pretty much runs.
There's less reason for a parent to call in. However, we will have folks in the office to answer those questions. And one of the big problems that you'll have with some companies is the software and the information is only as good as the information that's put into the system.
Right.
So if the routes aren't built right, which we have daily upload, and I'm not quite sure the terms, but we take in the information and kick it out on a daily basis to keep the routes correctly. That comes into our software, It also is represented for the drivers, and it's inside of our dispatch software that we have set for the bus. And providing Christina and her team, when a bus goes down or they find headlights out and they're gonna down it after it's been assigned, change that bus, that's where we find the problems, and we're you know, it's more manual sometimes when we have an issue. As far as the system itself, it runs well. Now, if you talk to me about my northeast area of the state where cell phone is terrible in Thompson and like that, they do catch a little bit more gaps, but I think here you're gonna find that you don't have an issue. I think there's a mechanism also to text parents within it, but we'll get more data to Christian and Patrick to be able to get to you, and if need be, we can come back here with our team of folks that really understand that better. I just tell them what to do. And,
I mean, you know, but you know, obviously from the perspective of, you know, hey, we, you know, the location, everybody catches the flu, and we've got, you know, four drivers out, right? We're going to be communicating 100% upfront and, you know, honest about the situation. Obviously, you know, we're going to have plans in place so that hopefully that doesn't happen, but, you know, unfortunately, you never know, but.
Thank you for that. And thank you also for the respect with which the current drivers are being treated. I think you'll find that they are some of the best in the business, and I appreciate the thoughtful approach there too.
Yeah, 100%.
they're giving me hugs when I meet them up with it, so
They're a great
they are.
They're a really good group.
Lenny?
Hugs are good. I do have a couple questions. I don't know if they're silly or if you've answered this previously, so if you have, I apologize. For the app, the student tracker app, that's fantastic because I feel like we all need to track everything at this point in time. Is there a cost associated, do you know? No?
No.
Okay. When you use the tracker, not the tracker software, when you use, you call it Traversa to make the routes, is there a limit on, you know, if it says this route's going to take 45 minutes, is there a limit when you're looking at timing for routes where you would change it, or
Sure.
is there an average time for a route?
Yeah, I mean, you know, usually we'll take the input from the district as far as, you know, their safety requirements and, certain, roads that you can't drop off on or, things like that. But certainly, time, distance, and ridership are all things that the system takes into account. And, if we say, hey, we don't want a kid on the bus for more than 45 minutes, we can program that in. Most districts, I believe, make it like usually an hour is the cutoff, and we can work with that timing. Now, sometimes the data might come back and say, oh well, if you only want the kids on the bus for, let's say, half an hour, then we need to add 3 more buses. I'm making that up, but that's what the software will provide. Yeah.
Okay.
But the parameters we set are based on what Christian and Patrick relay to us that the district wants. If we're door stopping K through 4, then that's going to be put on there, and then you've got the door open, the door closed, time for the child to load, and like that. Once we get to the parameter of what the district would expect, no more than half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever, it'll stop it. And at that time, we're going to come to the district and say, you have a bus that's going to be perceived as being half full driving up to a school. Here's why. Do we want to do something different? And so we're going to communicate. We're not just going to tell you, here's what you got.
Okay, that's great. And one more, is that fine?
Yeah.
Oh, I lost it. When would parents know the bus routes? Because I feel like we have a lot of planners. So parents will want to know kind of, before school starts, I don't know, a week, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. When do they usually come out the routes?
Yeah, typically like 2 weeks before the start of school.
Okay.
It really depends on, there's some districts, and we'll use your sister New Haven, and I was involved in New Haven for a while. They're 4,000 changes a week as they come into it. They're, late on registration. So if you don't have all the data, sometimes that stalls being able to get you good data. We can give you data at any time. We can put together the routes, but whether it's really going to look that way day one or not will be dependent on whether we're accepting registration in high volumes right on up to the last minute, or if those are even high volumes in the first place. Typically, I like to get the routes done into our drivers and completed, and then do updates by the 15th of August. That way we're primed to be able to show it to our drivers, have our drivers be able to go out and do dry runs. And those are important too. We require that our drivers do dry runs during the times that they would be driving it normally. So if a bush or some level of construction came up and you can't see around the corner or something, we have to rethink where that is. They changed a road to a one-way that used to be to whatever. We want to catch that a week or so before school starts so that we can adapt and fix that. As far as getting you guys the data, that would be really how Christian and Patrick would like it. How you post it, if it goes out in the newspaper, if you send it out in an electronic form to the parents or whoever, we can do whatever. But I expect you'll have good, solid information by mid-August that we can count on, unless we expect late registration or some snafu happened.
My other question was about the door-to-door stopping, but I think you just answered that well.
Okay, you good?
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I would just like to say on behalf of the board that from the start during the interview process that I was involved with Kristen to now, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope it remains that way. I'm sure it will. You guys are really making a dent in what we were trying to accomplish. So basically what I'm saying is, as long as you guys are making us look good, I appreciate that.
That's what we're here for.
It was a lot of talk back and forth about what to do and how to do it, and the options, and it was difficult, and it's obvious to us now that we made the right decision. So we just appreciate that. Again, if you have any problems, you already know, it's pretty open administration, so you can just talk to them and they'll get you whatever you need to move forward.
And we greatly appreciate that, and we are going to continue to work very hard every single day to make sure that we don't let anybody down.
Michelle, you got one more?
Just one more, because I forgot to ask it before. I know a lot of people ask questions about the app, but like in the event that like buses are running late in the morning, is that something that's triggered from you guys, like through that app that would notify people? Like do you know what that process is like?
I don't off the top of my head. I mean, typically in that situation, we would notify someone from the district, and the district would send something out to parents. I don't know if there's technology within the app that we can explore that, certainly.
Yeah, we'll have to bring in the team that knows that really, really well, because we're like that, the people that can kind of build the shit, but I don't know every peg, right? My understanding with that software is that we have the ability to do individual or bus texts out to notify the parents. Some districts want us to do that, some want us to do it through them. So I think that's where the wishy-washy is. We have the technology to do exactly what we're talking about. It's a matter of, do you want Christina in the ops suit sending stuff directly out to parents, or do you want us to put it through the district to get the approval to do it, or do you want to do it on your level of communication? And I think that's all stuff we'll work out as we get closer. But the technology is there to do that.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm sure you'll be working that out with them, but I would imagine that anything that goes out to the parents would go through Patrick or Christian. But that's for you guys to work out how that actually happens, but I'm sure that would be the case. Anybody else? Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate you.
Moving on to business, may I have a motion to approve the February 13, 2025 Board of Education regular meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Moving on to the student rep reports. Joe Salamini.
All right, so first off, we'd like to congratulate Hanako Moffitt and Chloe Diaz. They're being honored as NHHS Outstanding Seniors in the Performing Arts by the CT Association Schools. Hanako is this year's art recipient, and Chloe is this year's music recipient. Also, the school counseling department is excited to begin their junior parent meetings, and they would like to say, if you have not yet confirmed this appointment with your child's counselor, please contact them. And lastly, NHHS is pleased to manage a significant scholarship program for its seniors. More information on applying for the scholarship will be shared soon. If you are interested in donating to the scholarship fund, please see the letter in the Daily Bulletin.
Thanks, Joe. Mr. Brower-Reedwine?
So the North Haven Ed Foundation Trivia Night is back on Friday, April 4th, 2025. Tickets are available at the North Haven Education Foundation website. Please support this great organization and fun event by buying tickets or making a donation. Congratulations to dozens of students, adults, and volunteers who made our all-school musical, The Prom, a success. From acting to set design to costuming to lighting and sound, the play was well attended and appreciated. And the art department of North Haven Public Schools cordially invites you to attend the Art Beat K-12 exhibition on May 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. on the first floor of North Haven High School. The event features student work from all North Haven High School public schools.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's now time for public comment. This portion of the public comment will be about non-agenda items. Is there anyone on the floor who would like to speak?
Governor's Drive. I think everybody knows me.
Speak into the mic.
Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. I think everybody knows me, but for those of you who do not, I am a teacher at the middle school. I am president of the North Haven Education Association, which is our teachers union, representing over 325 teachers here in town. I'm also a co-president of Monterey's PTA, and I have 4 kids, ages kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. So very well invested in our community here in North Haven. I did not have intention of speaking tonight. However, I did finally finish watching the Board of Ed meeting, or Board of Finance meeting last night, and I was trying to squeeze it in between all of the multiple things I had to do today. But I did finish watching that, and I did really want to speak just first to say thank you to Ron and Amanda and Michelle for standing up last night and for speaking in the way that you did. So I wanted to express my sincere gratitude to the whole board for being outspoken and your outspoken support for our schools, our students, and our teachers at last night's Board of Finance meeting. Your advocacy is deeply appreciated, and it reinforces our shared commitment that we all have to providing the best possible education for our children. And I think I had every intent of going last night, but with those 4 children comes 4 sports in the spring that I've already started, so I could not squeeze that in. But as we move forward, though we recognize that the requested 6.99% increase is higher than what we've seen in past years, it's also important to acknowledge that this request was originally significantly higher. To this effect, through extensive review, everything that could possibly be cut has already been removed from our budget. We are now at a critical point where further reductions will directly and negatively impact our students and our schools, and I think it's important that parents hear that piece. This year, especially, we faced an uphill battle. The challenges of property reevaluations combined with the budget request being higher than that what has historically been approved by referendums in the past creates this aura of uncertainty. However, what remains certain is the importance of standing together as a community. Collaboration is key. We must show up, not just at board meetings, but at town meetings, and most importantly, at the referendum. The budget will not pass without our collective effort. If we do not mobilize and make our voices heard at the ballot box, we will see even deeper cuts that will affect our teachers, class sizes, program offerings, student resources, and ultimately the quality of education we can provide here in North Haven. To every parent, educator, and community member, this is our moment to advocate for our students. We must show up and speak up at town meetings, and we must rock the vote for this referendum because our future of our schools at this kind of crossroad really depends on that piece. So NHEA has a massive PR campaign that we've been kind of working on. I know Patrick and Christian have worked on talking to PTA local PTAs at the elementary schools, but we're really trying to do our best to mobilize the community behind this. We have postcards ready to go out to really educate the community on the referendum, when it is, where it is, how to actually go vote, and really spread as much information as we can, because I think we're in a really critical situation this year. I know the meeting coming up, the town presentation of the budget is going to be probably a very outspoken meeting for some members of our community. So we're poised in trying to get more parents to show up to that, to be the opposite of that opposition that we're likely going to see. So I just wanted to say thank you, and then at least to the parents watching on Facebook, hopefully we can spread the word as much as possible. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I would just like to say, I speak on behalf of Michelle and G and Amanda, that, the advocacy that you were thanking us for is earned by you guys. We weren't just up there saying it because I'm the chair and they're members. It was more than that. We recognize the effort that everyone here puts in, from the administration down to the teachers, the nurses, custodial, everyone, and the tremendous job you guys do with the limited resources that you have. It's commendable, so thank you for that. Anybody else? Seeing none, we're going to move on to consent agenda, but there is none. We're going to move on to the ratification of the contract between the North Haven Board of Education and the North Haven School Nurses, July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2028. May I have a motion to ratify the contract between the North Haven Board of Education and the North Haven School Nurses dated July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2028?
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I was part of that. It was a great group of people to work with, very respectful, really easy process.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstentions? None? So moved. Lenny, we're going to move on to the 2025-2026 district calendar. Lenny?
We looked at, we are looking at the calendar. 2 years ago, we had a calendar committee, no, 3 years ago, we had a calendar committee, and we met a number of times and discussed kind of offsetting the end of the year with the heat in the schools and a couple other things. So we are currently, again, looking at the start date. So, three years ago when we met, we changed the start date to a Monday versus the Wednesday start. So we're looking at both options now as we kind of move forward.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Lenny?
So just one quick question, is the only thing that we're looking at here is really the start date and the end date, or the projected end date prior to snow and weather incidents, correct?
Yeah, the main thing that we were looking at, because, we did have a couple questions come up, and we always like to make sure that, we're double checking what we're doing, right? Crossing our T's and dotting our I's. So really, it's the start date, I would say.
Okay.
And then how it then will project the end date.
Yep. Good, thank you.
Marty, do you have anything for ACES?
No, I didn't make a meeting this month.
Okay, thank you. Curriculum, instruction, and planning?
We did not have a meeting this month.
Amanda, finance and operations?
We met earlier tonight, and we spent a lot of time on the 3 lines that we are very closely monitoring. I think Christian's going to get into that in his update. We did a deep dive on our remaining reserve accounts. We also spent significant time talking about special education spending. The current budget freeze does continue, and the district is making really difficult choices right now. I want to just say thank you to our teachers, our students, and our staff for their flexibility and resilience right now. We know it's not easy for us either, but we truly appreciate you hanging tough. Last night, the Board of Finance did vote to advance our 6.99% budget request, which I'm very thankful for. And I want to just echo Krista to say, like, the April 7th budget public hearing is a great time to come out to the high school, the auditorium at 7 p.m., and provide your thoughts and feedback on that budget. Our next meeting is April 10th at 5:15.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the first read of policy. Policy number 5131.911, Connecticut School Climate Policy Students. And policy 5145.51, policy regarding Title IX of the Education Amendments of the 1972, prohibition of sex discrimination and sexual harassment students. We'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Do you mind if I make a couple comments about the policy?
You absolutely can.
Thank you. So regarding the Connecticut School Climate Policy, it's actually pursuant to Connecticut General Statute that boards of education must adopt this policy that was developed by CADE and like a collaborative of other folks as well. And this policy needs to be adopted by July 1st of this school year and implemented, well, actually July 1st of 2025, and implemented by the start of the 25-26 school year. So we're in timing for a first, second, and approval with the first read being this evening.
Right.
And regarding the policy, the Title IX policy, this is actually a revision and a reversion to the 2020 Title IX policy. So that is the one that's currently in effect that we need to adopt as a district.
Can I ask a question? So Patrick, the one, I know it has all the definitions on the student climate policy, but the definition for bullying in here is not the same definition that the state of Connecticut has. So can we change it to match Connecticut's?
So the one that's in the draft policy
Yeah.
is the one that is actually from the Connecticut State draft policy that was provided through Shipman.
Because that's different than what?
The policy has very different nuances than what we have adopted now. I actually reached out to legal counsel and they responded they were waiting for further
Okay.
information. So as soon as I get that, I'll have more to share at the next meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Let me just hit Ed Foundation really quickly. Ed Foundation met last week. As was shared earlier, they continue to prepare for the upcoming trivia night, April 4th. They also welcomed a new potential board member, and I think Christian will hit on a couple of grants in his report that they approved. This evening, there is no DEI report. And as far as the elementary audit, the planning group tends to meet on a bi-weekly basis. However, our counterparts at MP I should say, wanted to prepare some additional information for us, so they canceled this most recent meeting, but we'll be meeting on March 22nd. And also, part of my report tonight, I wanted to address and have a discussion regarding the potential non-renewal of non-tenured teachers. So as Krista said earlier, as we spoke about many times, the Board of Education's budget for the 25-26 school year proposes a 6.99% increase over this current year. With that 6.99%, there will be no reductions to staffing if the budget passes through the May 20th referendum without any further cuts. However, if the budget does not pass through this first referendum, then a reduction in staffing is a very strong possibility. But again, it's solely dependent on how much the Board of Finance will reduce the Board of Ed's budget prior to the second referendum. So in the event the budget doesn't pass through this first referendum, I think the district should be prepared to meet what is Connecticut State Statute 10-151, and CT Statute 10-151 requires that the contract of employment of a teacher who has not attained tenure shall be continued into the next school year unless such teacher receives written notice by May 1st of the school year that such contract will not be renewed for the following year. So therefore, just to err on the side of caution, I'm proposing that the Board of Education consider a vote in April to issue all non-tenured teachers with a non-renewal letter in order to stay in compliance with the statute. the budget passes on May 20th, a second letter will be issued to all non-tenured teachers, assuring them that their positions are not in jeopardy, and we have every intention of them returning to the district. Again, this is just a conservative measure in the unlikely event the budget does not pass. However, we remain very optimistic. Any discussion, questions around that topic?
Go ahead, Amanda.
I have a question about this, and it might be kind of a dumb question.
No such
But what happens if we choose not to send the letters?
Then we are unable to the board is unable to non-renew non-tenured teachers. They remain ours. We do not have that opportunity because we did not meet that non-compliance with that statute. Fair question. We asked that question of ourselves as well.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah?
So in the event that that happens and then the referendum doesn't pass and we face reductions and positions have to be cut, then it would not go through the RIF process, or it would still go through the RIF
Well,
process?
let me just clarify that for a little bit. If it doesn't pass, that does not mean that we are forced to do anything. We, as you well know, we all decide where the cuts come from. And if we can figure out, depending on, number one, if this doesn't pass, and then number two, what the Board of Finance asks us to reduce by. That's the determining factor. So once we get that number, we'll be able to know. But it is never an intention to lose any of the teaching staff, as you well know. I'm speaking to the choir, I realize that. But I just want to make sure that we are not at the point where we have to do anything. We are in control of our own monetary destination in the way we determine what gets cut.
And Michelle, we would follow the contractual process in order to do that once that step is decided upon.
Does that mean that non-tenured teachers who didn't receive a letter would not be part of that process?
Correct, but we are, the plan is to issue renewal letters to all non-tenured teachers in district.
I guess in theory, if we went through every single one, then you would, correct?
Then we would.
Start with the lowest tenure.
Yep.
So in theory, which is just something
there is a
that won't
process
happen, if you go through every non-tenured teacher and you still needed more teachers, then you would go with the least tenured teacher and move forward. But that is not going to be a situation.
But there are some caveats to that.
Yeah,
depending
there's-
on certification.
Yes,
Things like that.
no question. I just meant to say that they're not untouchable, for lack of a better description.
Can I ask?
Please.
Maybe, again, silly questions. Just kind of so I understand process. So when is the budget vote? Do we know?
May 20th.
May, right.
May 20th.
But April 7th is the meeting at the high school.
Right.
That's the presentation.
Okay. So let's say, right, because it's better to be proactive than reactive, that the budget doesn't pass. Do we as a board meet again, like we do in January? Don't throw things at me. To go over, like, what could potentially be cut? Because I don't think any of us want to.
I think we would wait until we get the number from Board of
Yes,
Finance.
of course.
Right, but the process would be
And
that
then
we
at the
could
same-
meet again and actually
Yes.
look at what,
We would have to,
not that we want
We
to
would
cut
have to.
anything else.
It'd be very
But-
similar to
Right.
the third meeting the board had.
exactly.
Right, but if
Line
we
for
could
line for line for
avoid,
line for line.
right, we could try to avoid, teachers.
Yes.
Right, because we determine where we're going
Okay.
to cut, no question. Anybody else?
So, but I just want to make sure I understand the calculus on this. There's a non-zero chance that the budget will fail at referendum. Hopefully not, hopefully it passes. But in the case that it does fail, there's a non-zero chance that the Board of Finance further reduces the Board of Education budget, right?
That's correct.
And we're saying that because there are those two non-zero chances, we think we should send out a letter to our non-tenured teachers just in case.
Yes.
And other districts do this?
Other districts do it now.
I have to say, like,
This is the problem that you're gonna run into. If the Board of Finance says, hey, we need 500,000 from you, just for a conversation, that doesn't mean that that budget's gonna pass either. So we can come down and give them what they're asking for. It needs to be presented again. It still may be voted down. So if it's voted down and you haven't done this procedure, you have no where you're gonna go. You see what I'm saying? So it's
I hear
the
you.
doomsday
worst
portion
scenario.
of the budget that we're doing now.
That we
It's
will try
something
to
you
avoid.
do for doomsday, not for today or tomorrow.
I know I don't speak for everybody on this board, but I think the intention of everyone on this board is to maintain as many of our talented teachers as possible.
Our position is to maintain all of them.
Yes.
Not every talented one, all of them.
All of them. Thank you.
And
That
they're
is
all talented.
Correct.
Don't get me wrong,
Correct.
but all of them.
And to me, like right now, we're in a spending freeze. It's been several difficult budget years, and our teachers have shown up for us.
Yes.
Our teachers show up for us constantly, and they have gotten us through a pandemic. They have gotten us through really, really challenging, times from a worldwide perspective, and they continue to kind of come in here, work really hard, and we're seeing the fruits of their labor in, the excellence of our schools.
Mm-hmm.
How
question.
is this going to be received by those non-tenured teachers?
Well, this is the factual matter of it. And there is really nothing you can do. If you would be irresponsible if you didn't do this. Again, this is the doomsday piece of paper that we hope we never have to open that envelope on. But it has to be done because if that budget continuously fails, eventually you run out of other budgetary items to subtract from, and you have to go to teachers.
How many teachers are non-tenured?
60.
60?
So,
Can I piggyback? Can I? Are you fine? Okay. So, again, worst case scenario, right? 60 teachers, so that would affect our classroom numbers. It would affect possibly our extracurriculars. It could affect a whole bunch of
sure,
things.
coaching, everything, name it.
It's 60 teachers is larger than one school, if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's say these letters go out. I know we have to vote on it. I'm just, again, process. My brain works with process. That doesn't mean that if it doesn't pass, we wouldn't meet, that that's the first thing we would cut, correct? We would still meet.
Teachers
through
are the
everything?
absolute
Okay.
last thing. You find the last thing we would cut, then you find two more things, and then you do the teachers. That's how far down the list they are.
Okay, I
To
just want to
get-
make sure
to
that
get
the
cut.
teachers are hearing.
Yeah, no, I hope I know the union's here, and I hope the teachers are understanding the absolute commitment we have to not losing any staff. We are doing anything and everything in our power to make sure that who we have stays here. You guys have done a fantastic job. The fact that we had to do this letter is more of a mechanical issue than it is a warning. It is just something that needed to be done, even when we didn't want to necessarily do it. My first intention was to not do it, but I thought that was irresponsible after I thought about it, because if this budget does not pass in multiple phases, you're stuck. And I don't ever expect that to happen, but the reality is the reality, and you have to make yourself available for that third, fourth, and fifth refusal of a budget line that's proposed. So, I apologize if anybody takes offense to that, but it is the absolute last resort. It has to be done by statute. If you ran into an area where, you're 4 times refused and you can't cut a teacher, what do you do? There's nothing left. There's nothing left. So unfortunately, that's the reality of where we're at in the state right now. But again, there are numerous schools that hand these out on the regular for every time the budget's due. They just put it out there now. We are not doing that. We are not doing that. We're doing that for a very specific reason, and that is to make sure that the people in the town know how important it is to maintain the structure that we have. The school is in a nice position moving forward, and it is showing improvements in all areas, and it needs to stay that way. We cannot afford to take a step backwards for these students, and we do not plan to. But this is just one of those things that had to happen.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
And thank you for explaining, Ron. Like, I'm unfamiliar with this process outside of that, you know, my sister's a teacher in Ansonia. She's received these letters previously. And they certainly didn't feel good, but I understand that there are statutory requirements here. How would we deliver them? Because I think if we were to vote in favor of this, which I'm still processing this, but how do these letters get delivered?
You can, because I think there's a misunderstanding here.
So, the four of us at the table on this side here, along with Krista, have already had a couple discussions around preparing teachers for this. We sent a letter out earlier this week, Monday, just informing the district that this might be a possibility. Depending how the conversation went today, we also have a plan to meet with teachers tomorrow, just to answer questions, to talk with them. And then if we get to that point where the letters are, we will be delivering them to teachers, answering follow-up questions, and we'll be re-delivering a second letter after the budget passes on May 21st, saying, sorry that we had to go this route.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is so, if we did not have to abide by the May 1st deadline of this tenure law,
Then it never would even be prepared.
this wouldn't be a conversation.
Right.
It's cruel.
Right.
This is cruel.
It is, and it's a tactic that the
Yeah.
state uses.
Yeah.
Michelle?
I just wanted to speak to that, Patrick, and just say that I appreciate the sensitivity that in depending on how far we go in this process, that you, the staff down there, are taking to explain it to everybody and to go and have those meetings. I work in a district where these letters are sent out every single year, and I've received numerous of these letters, and it's an awful feeling, absolutely awful feeling. And I know that everyone on this board does not want to lose not one teacher, and that we fought for that, and we will continue to fight for that the whole way through. When I get my letter, and when I've gotten these letters, it's literally put in my mailbox and I need to sign it. So I think it's wonderful that you are taking the time to talk to the union, to talk to the teachers, and for everyone here to make sure everyone knows that this is absolutely not our intention. Nobody wants this. This isn't something that North Haven does every year and will not do. It's just what we have to do because of the statute. So thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to, this is an information item only tonight, right? We're not taking any action on it tonight?
And speaking with Ron in preparation with tonight's meeting, I thought it was very important to get the conversation going and the board thinking about this because it is a very significant and impactful. So next month, there may be, depending on how the board would like to vote, or whether included or not as a vote, maybe it comes back to an informational. I'm not sure, but at least the board had the opportunity to have this discussion.
I just wanted to make sure, because I don't think anybody's really prepared to have to vote on it tonight.
And
I wasn't sure.
The other thing that I don't, and I apologize for, is we always try to keep the board updated. You guys are the first to know, you're the Board of Education. But when it comes to certain things like this with our teachers, with the agenda item that came out Monday, we couldn't let that sit till Thursday, so we needed to make sure that we touch base with them. And I know we did with all of you as well, but that was the only reason that we moved a little bit quicker than normal and out of order.
And My other question centers around, I guess, the whole procedural aspect of this, which I understand it's a procedural mechanism. I understand ultimately it's the board that has the final decision on where the deductions that we're required to make and that money comes from. I also understand that we've already looked line by line by line by line at things, and we're in a difficult position. But what I would like to know, and I don't even know if there is an answer to this, is if we decide not to do this, right, and we're told we have to deduct X number of dollars, whatever that number is, and we can't get to that number, what happens? Like, if there is no discretionary amount left for us to cut, what happens?
I don't think so either. I'm going to mention that.
I do not have a good answer for you at this point. I do not know where we would go after that. That's why districts,
You're finding that money.
yeah.
One way or the other, you're finding that money.
You
You may say, and I don't mean you in general, but, you know, it may be said that, hey, listen, there's nowhere else to go. Well, there's always somewhere to go. Because then you start looking at other options that you really don't want to talk about. And, you know, I know we're all sitting here talking about a vote next month and this, that. I don't know that there's going to be a vote next month. There may not be a choice on whether we do this or not. It is a state statute. And I've already advised Patrick, because it's a state statute, to move ahead in getting this prepared to deliver worst case scenario. It has to be done. And I hate the thought of it. It has to be done. So we're very heavy on me, Patrick, Christian, Melinda, Anthony, everybody who's been involved in any conversation regarding it. This is not so much something that we vote on, more than we have to swallow.
And look, I'm not debating the necessity of it or the procedural requirement or whether it's responsible or irresponsible not to do this. I'm just curious, even if we do this, if, you know, in your scenario, Ron, where we're on our third or fourth attempt now, I mean, there's gonna come a point where there's, you know, I know you say you find it, you don't think you can find it, but there are things that contractually we can't cut. Like, what happens if we get to that point?
And that's why this letter has to go out. It has to. And you've made that example perfectly clear now, I hope for everybody. That is why this letter has to go out.
And look, I mean, North Haven it's an amazing place to live. People move here to be in our school districts. Our school districts have gotten better and better. And that's the teachers are the lifeblood of our district. That's the reason our district does well.
Yes.
So,
That's why, you know, and I've been in this town a long time too. I've been in this town for 56 years. And I, in my heart, would not believe that it would ever get to that many refusals to have to deal with that. I don't ever see it. But again, it's by statute and it just has to be done.
I think we're really fortunate that we haven't had to do this for years because our budget has never been this tight. But the reality is, despite what others may have said in other arenas, if we have to go below 6.99, it is an unfortunate reality that it is a possibility that we are going to have to cut positions based on the amount of money that the Board of Finance further takes from us. So
I think it's been 14 years since this
been a
letter
long
has gone
time.
out in this system.
But it is a procedure that happens across the state. I mean, I got them when I first started, non-tenured teachers. It's unfortunate, but I feel like non-tenured teachers know that it exists in budget years that are tight. It's just a part of the educational system that's been in place forever, or at least for as long as I can remember.
And beyond that, it's interesting because Melinda, myself, Christian, Anthony, when we're interviewing new teachers that are coming to the district, some of them that are established in other districts ask us, do you lay teachers off? Do you non-tenured? We have always given them the answer, we do not do that. And we have never, in my tenure, have never eliminated a position because of this. So, yeah, I feel terrible inside because I was truthful at the time, but I'm not truthful at this point. So We have a lot of good teachers that trusted in us, bringing them over here. So it's really, as Ron said, very difficult to swallow.
But I think it's important that we just make it a point that it is the last resort, absolutely, and we will look at other things. So I just want to make sure that that's like loud and
Yes.
clear. that-
Absolutely.
Because I feel, yes, it's worst case scenario, yes, we have to be prepared. I think we all understand the process, the procedure, the state statutes. I just want to make sure that, and I'm not speaking for anybody else, but it will be the last absolutely thing that we would look at.
I agree with you, Eleni, and I think that anything else that remains in the budget is going to be painful. So
Yeah,
there
whatever
are
is left.
very painful things before our teachers, and I'm like providing my commitment tonight that like teachers will be the last from me as well. And this is something that's beyond the scope of this board, but it's so disheartening to go through this process. I can only imagine what it's like to be a teacher right now, but as teacher shortages persist, and I know it's not necessarily us treating them this way, there's a state statute involved, but this is not a great way to treat highly educated, qualified and talented people.
And I think it underscores what Krista came up and said earlier, the importance of stakeholder. Actually, I take that back, because I think everybody in the town is a stakeholder to the success of the education, not just the parents in the district, but people need to come out and support this budget. Because from a 100% selfish perspective, I don't want to have to face the possibility of doing anything more than just sending this letter out and then sending a letter out on the 20th or 21st saying, sorry, we sent you that letter, so.
And I'd just like to bounce off what Amanda said. This is not only no way to treat educated, respected people, this is no way to treat anybody. No one should be treated like this.
Thank you, Ron.
But here we are. So I'd like to move on, if it's okay? All right. Hey, who gets to follow that up? The assistant superintendent.
I do, and I'm going to follow it up to align with that same conversation, which was not so wonderful. After much consideration and knowing what we just talked about, we've made the decision to not hold the general summer school programs. That will include the remedial and the intervention and the enrichment. I just think in good conscience, we need to be conservative so that if we need to go back in and make some cuts, we have that little bit of funding that we can use for teacher salaries. If we don't need to use that and the budget passes just fine, we will provide extra enrichment and intervention during the school year for students. So we'll be able to utilize that funding to go right back to them. But I think that the timing does not work for us to be able to make a commitment to something like that, to start it at the beginning of July with all of this uncertainty. So the piece, obviously the whole thing is very troubling to me, but the high school credit redemption piece is a part where students need to make up those credits if they have failed or need to get something accomplished so that they're in line for graduation. So the guidance department at the high school will work with their students in those situations. And we have some online learning platforms that we have used for non-core classes previously. And we will be able to have some things set up for students if they desire to do that over the summer to try to make up for their credits. We also right now are running credit redemption opportunities at the high school. We've been doing this for the past couple of years. So if a student failed for a certain marking period, they have an opportunity to do some seat time, to do some assignments, to receive some tutoring so that they can be back in good pacing to pass the class at the end of the year. So that will stay in place as well. And funds that would have been allocated for the summer school will get wrapped around for next year to make sure that we're able to help students as needed. On to better, more positive notes, our kindergarten registration is up and running. Screenings are arranged at each building, so that is forthcoming. Our numbers look very similar to this year, very steady, so we'll of course keep an eye on those. And lastly, right before this meeting, Anthony and I had the pleasure of doing a walkthrough before the play at the middle school. And the sets and the costumes, just amazing. The buzz going on there, kids were just elated, right? So it should be a wonderful 3 days of the play, and that was the right spot today. Great.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for, no? Okay. Director of Student Services report?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I have a few items just to update you on this evening. As I had mentioned last month, we are working on putting together a college accessibility night event, which will be on April 30th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the North Haven High School cafeteria. And this evening, again, is an opportunity to meet with local colleges, universities, trade programs for students that may need to access accessibility resources and tools moving forward in their post-secondary steps. So I wanted to definitely remind everyone about that, and hopefully we're able to have a nice turnout in many schools that are able to join us. Additionally, it just opened, I'm working on writing the IDEA grant, which is a huge additive, a supplement, if you will, to our special education funding, and it really helps to offset most of our extended school year expenses and also some non-certified staff members throughout the school year. So I will be working on that. It's due by the beginning of May. So I just want to make sure that we have that set and ready to go, because it is a huge asset to our district, and we're very thankful for that funding that we have. And lastly, as I had mentioned last month too, extended school year is in full swing in the planning phases. We have quite a few teachers in district, certified and non-certified staff that are looking to join us for the 4 or 5 weeks in July this summer. So very thankful for that. And more information to come.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Anthony? Chief Operating Officer's report?
Good evening, everyone. As Amanda highlighted in her report from our Finance Committee, we are currently and continue to remain in a budgetary freeze in an effort to help alleviate really 3 primary account lines that we are looking at and that we have spoken about previously. One of the primary ones is 5600. This is our tuition for out-of-district special education costs. This is a line that we've been quite open about that is currently running over. I would like to bring some optimism to this line, though. We have received our first installment of our excess cost payment that came in right at the end of February. That first installment was $674,438, which will be booked against the negative on this line. What gives me pause and optimism, you may have seen this in the news, there was some back and forth, but House Bill 7163 passed, which appropriated $40 million of additional funding towards excess costs, which is raising the amount that we should expect for our second installment to $417,426, which will also be applied to help alleviate this deficit. We continue to watch our professional and technical services line. As we've echoed quite publicly, we do a lot for all of our students, both out of district and in district, and this does require us to have to go out for contracted services, and so we are watching this line carefully. It is expected to go over budget at my next report, as well as electricity at the April report, excuse me. Attached to my budget report is our normal budget transfer report. There's only just one that we would seek your approval on. Obviously, we're not, with the budget freeze, we're trying not to spend a whole lot, so you're not seeing many transfer reports either. Our reserve accounts are also on my report that you were presented with this evening, as well as their reconciliations behind the Munis report. The one that I do want to point out is, of course, our medical reserve account line. Currently, that now sits at just a little bit over $2 million. We are at the point where, as the claims have continued to come in, you are now starting to see the full impact of the $950,000 cut that we received. And this is based on how claims are continuing to come in throughout this year. To some positive notes in terms of cafeteria and food services, we have begun, as is required by the Connecticut State Department of Education, our RFP for our food service management contract. This has to be done every 5 years. Our entire RFP was approved by the state. It was posted on March 7th. We had our mandatory pre-bid tour and question and answer period last Friday. Bids must be in by April 11th. With that being said, we continue to receive really great service from our current food service management contract. That would be Chartwell's. Some highlights that they provided. Our sales continue to be strong throughout February, even with the shorter month and the snow day. All of our cafeterias have had their biannual health inspections and did very well and were issued their new Quinnipiac health licenses. And Chartwell's promotion this month was healthy snacks and sides, where a showcase of chili lime corn and local apples from Blue Hills Orchard were served. With our grants report, and as Superintendent Stark highlighted, I would like to mention that we did receive 2 grants from the North Haven Education Foundation that were applied for by Mr. Bevan Moore, who is connected with our future problem solvers. 2 nice additions that we'll be receiving. One, it was a $250 grant for a plastic bottle 3D printing filament machine. And I looked at this thing, what it effectively does, and Mr. Moore would certainly explain it better than I could, is it takes plastic bottles and creates the filament that you would use for 3D printing. In addition was also a low impact food growing station, one of the ones that runs almost like up a wall almost, but you can grow vertically the food there. So we're very thankful for those from the North Haven Education Foundation. And in terms of my transportation report, I'll obviously defer that to the presentation that was given this evening by where we stand with DATCO at this time. Thank you.
What's that?
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Christian? May I have a motion to approve the monthly financial report, including the recommended transfers?
Make a motion?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We are now in the portion of the meeting where we do public comment. This portion of the public comment is reserved for agenda items only. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
I just wanted to come back up, Chris Kaplan, sorry. Come back up one more time, just talk about the non-renewal notices. I had met with our central office team earlier, or actually last week and then earlier this week, to kind of just wrap our heads around this process. And as many of you have expressed, obviously this is nothing that's fun, it's nothing that anybody wants to see done. And I think that's echoed very loudly today, and I just want you to know that that sentiment does reach the teachers, and that piece does go far. The non-renewal notices are something that I experienced my first 4 years here. I think when they were routine, it was just something to expect. Your veteran teachers were like, hey, it's no big deal. You know, once the budget passes, you'll get that, assignment letter. And again, it did happen, but I think these will feel very much like a gut punch because of the fact that we haven't done them in so long. And I think it's been since I got tenured in 2012. So I think that was kind of the last time that we did this. But I think something that the board can do to be proactive is really just showing that support for the teachers and those non-tenured staff, whether it's sending a letter to the administrators to share with their faculty at faculty meetings, just commending them on something they've been doing, or commenting on something that the school has done, or, I know Amanda, you made a public statement that, that among others, that, cutting the teachers is really the last on our item, but sharing those things when you see the teachers and letting them know in person, because although we encourage everybody to watch, obviously we all have families and we all have sometimes double jobs. So there's a lot going on, but I think any way that your message can get across that you are here to support them, and that even though we're facing this difficult budget time, we're kind of facing it together, and that, cutting staff is the last on everybody's agenda. So I think those sentiments do go very far. So any way you can be creative in sharing that out, I think would be more than welcome for all staff. So that's all I want to say for that.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn the March 20th, 2025 regular meeting of the Board of Education?
Make a motion?
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Thursday, April 10th, 2025. It will be upstairs? Upstairs.
There's a blood drive here.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.